Grand Rising. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone's doing well.
Peace, peace, peace.
Grand Rising. Put the ones up so we know that the audio is coming through cleanly and everybody can be heard.
Make sure everybody can hear us.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Two,
Yeah,
two,
I hear
one.
the sound coming out.
Let me see. I may have to drop that music down. Yeah, okay, I know what I gotta do. Dang it. Give me a second.
No problem. We're adjusting the sound volume so we can come in clear and everybody can be heard with clarity.
I'm gonna adjust the volumes. Give me a second. All right, go ahead, Bones.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Two, two, one, two.
All right, cool. So now I gotta bring the music in on another stream. Give me 1 second. So while I'm doing it, how's everybody doing? It's Grand Rising. Good. Grand Rising Free, Grand Rising David Corey, Grand Rising Antonio, Grand Rising Mr. TJ, Grand Rising Copper Color Queen, Grand Rising David Corey, Grand Rising Pamela Hall. Make sure I didn't miss any. Grand Rising, I'm just saying. All right. So I'll be bringing in the background music in a second. So how's everyone's day yesterday?
I said no complaints.
Yep.
If you had some, it wouldn't matter, right?
Yeah, really. I said my heart's still beating.
It's always a great start, right?
Yep. Switching over real quick.
Uh, Yesterday I did a training on the 501(c)s and some of the things that we was talking about over the past couple of days. So there should be some people signing in to the Conscious Assembly page. So if you get some email addresses and their addresses are in the Woodbridge area, let me know.
No problemo. And want to thank everyone who been sending in their information and getting it back and taking upon themselves to finish the work and push it on. Keep up the good work. And if there's anyone who sent in the email that haven't been responded to yet, just let us know. Because we've been making sure we answer everyone in an appropriate time, getting the information back to you.
Yep.
That's all you got. That's all. Just sound bite. Excuse me.
Well, I posted it in the chat also. Our email address is in the chat, folks. In case you need to spell it, it's right there.
Gully get.
What does that mean?
it's a verb. It's when you look stuff up.
It's when you're Googling.
Oh,
I got that from no sellout. I can't take credit for that word.
yeah, yeah,
Google it.
yes.
Just go on Google it.
I ain't trying to have to say
Yeah,
Google every time I say their name.
yeah.
Grand Rising Doodoo Vision stepped in the room. Oh, David Corey said, me and No Sellout are coming in lower. Let me see if that's on.
Two, two, 1, 2. Mic check.
How about go ahead, speak now.
Mic check. 2, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 2. Mic check. Microphone check.
Microphone
Grand-
checker. Microphone
Grand
check.
Rising.
Is that better? Actually, yeah, that's on. Okay, set mine right. Okay. That should be better on my end now.
Mic check. Mic check.
Are they sounding better? Grand Rising Golden Moon.
Grand Rising, Doodoo Vision just joined us. Peace, Golden Moon.
I'm just saying, said I found my grandfather's name yesterday after years of searching. I found it on the National Archives page. His name was Lige Biggs.
Okay,
Mr.
that's what's
Biggs.
up.
You found Mr. Biggs.
Oh, I think I know why. Hold on for a second. Let me turn
Uh-huh.
this down.
Oh, he said there it is. Okay, we're good on that.
Grand Rising to all the Gordons that's listening in Alabama, Mississippi, Hartford, Connecticut this rising. Stop calling me at the moment, though. Love you.
Peace to the Gordons. The Gordons.
Okay. That should help now. Y'all should be
How you doing this morning? Well, I see that. They got that word when you don't think. How you doing this rising, Doodoo Vision?
Good greetings, gentlemen. I'm just charging up my phone.
Alrighty.
24% was to get 50%. I'll come in hot and heavy.
Take your time. Take your time. Always a pleasure when you're here.
All right.
oh, look, I think I know why the music's not gonna come in now because I blocked it through the firewall.
I said so much protecting, we overprotected it.
So
No problem.
Yeah, so instead of holding everybody up, we'll just go without the music in the background today, if that's okay with everybody. We'll make the adjustments this weekend and correct it. So that's why it's not coming through, because it's allowed through the OBS, but it's not allowed through the browser. Because I blocked a whole bunch of stuff.
Yep.
My intrusion detection people were telling me that I had a lot of ports open that didn't need to be open, so we closed a lot of them.
Are we telling them?
No, no, no.
All right. Let's see. Make sure we didn't miss anybody. All right, so today we're going to be starting with the 501c15, which are mutual funds. So I'm gonna put that in the chat now.
I sent it out there.
Okay, well I sent it again.
I say double, so you can't miss it.
So let me pull it up on my screen because I'm gonna attempt to do this screen share thing. Let's see how this goes. Give me one moment. Look, you know the problem behind screen share is that screen is taken up, so you can't use it for anything else.
Uh-huh.
So you know what that means. I have to get a device that allows for more than 2 screens.
Yeah, I just ordered my cable to add 2 more to it, 2 more screens.
Do this.
Pretty soon the room just gonna be one big screen.
Man, who you telling? So, like I said, today we're going to be covering the 501c15, which are mutual funds. Mutual insurance. Again, we're providing this information so that individuals in the community will be able to help people in their community. And also, as they continue to work and find out who are the people in their tribe, they'll be able to help their tribe. Because contrary to popular belief or popular myth or misinformation or just plain ignorance because people are too lazy, many people are under the assumption that a lot of these tribes have casinos on them and they're very wealthy and they're doing well. When in fact, majority of the tribes that are on reservations are financially worse off than many of our hoods and our urban areas that are considered
Facts.
impoverished. So when we're looking to be added to these roles or to have our families added, please be mindful to take into consideration that they already have a budget. They already know how many people that they can, their resources will cover. So as people start to come forward, if we're not bringing them something, then yeah, they'll be more hesitant, not because they don't want to, because they feel they can't afford to. So when it's an issue of finances, that's always going to be one of the things that slows down progress, if that makes sense. So let me see if I get this right. Call myself trying to make things a lot better. Give me 1 second. Almost got it. Okay. Why did I show the screen? Let's see if I can pull it up. For whatever reason, it's not pulling it up. Can't pull up in the preview for whatever reason. It's interesting. Do it this way. Do Division says the majority of tribal lands are trailer parks. Exactly. So they're not even living in houses. But it's one of those situations. That's what happens when we do things out of ignorance, or we say things out of ignorance, without any facts. So I'm gonna see if I can if the screen will pop up, or let me see it once I do this. So I really want to make sure I get this right, so y'all can see the screen.
While you're getting that set up, also don't forget, if you haven't started your genealogy, go ahead and give it a start. If you need resources to help you out, you can visit www.autonomousassembly.com or aau.world. On the genealogy page, we have 50 free sites to help you get started on your genealogy as well. And also on the Autonomous Assembly page, there's videos to let you know how to find relatives that's not on Indian rolls. So the information there to help you out is there. You just have to access it and apply it. And again, that's www.autonomousassembly.com or aau.world. Or if you have questions, you can email us at autonomousassembly@gmail.com. Yesterday, I got a message that someone tried to call in, dial a show number. If I'm correct, the show number is only active when we're live doing the show.
Yeah, matter of fact, I can check to make sure that number is correct, because if not, I will correct it. Let me do that now. Because if not, then that could be a major problem. So I'm gonna hit the transition. Y'all gonna see the commercial, and then y'all should see my screen. If not, then I will go back to the picture that you see, and then we'll just be reading, like we have been. So let's do this first, and then we'll double check that calling number. So bear with me 1 second.
We going in. And hopefully the first two sections we did on the 501c versus tax exemption is turning out to be very helpful for the community. And also just don't listen to the information and let it blow your mind on the things that we're learning together. Also start researching into it and seeing how you can apply it, like Tim May said earlier, to start helping your community, to start helping your tribes. Like we said, these mechanisms has been here. The problem is we weren't made aware of them because of our experiences, a lot of our lifestyles. But now we have it. So the next thing is to start moving forward. What's the sense of having info and knowledge if you don't apply it? Again, what's the sense in having info and knowledge if you cannot apply it? Or you refuse to try to apply it?
David asked me if I can make it a little bigger. David, I'm trying to get up on the screen right now. If I can make it a little bigger, I will. For whatever reason, when we made the changes to reduce the load on the system, it won't capture the monitor that I have because I'm not back in my office today. So unfortunately, we're just going to have to read it to you like we've been having, and then just post it in the chat, and we'll get it fixed over this weekend. So we'll be able to have that. We should be able to have that available for you coming Monday when we continue up, because we'll probably be covering this for another 2 days.
So, sorry for the inconvenience, but we'll correct it and make sure everyone gets the info still.
Exactly. So I'm gonna go back, transition back, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and verify that caller number too. Yeah, we need a sound engineer.
Yeah, got one coming. Just had to relocate him real quick. Should be here by Sunday. Well, up in our area by Sunday. So.
Okay. Antonio, is that a little better? I think that's.
Antonio, stupid. Turn me up on the left. No, turn me down. No, a little bit more up on the right now. No, I got shot in the head 9 times. Fisticuff. I'm going in. Yeah.
No. You're not doing it this morning.
Yeah, we blaming Antonio. Came in starting. Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, so the number is 669-900-6833, and then you hit pound and then pound again, and then you'll be able to join the call. You will be placed in a waiting room, but we'll be able to see you, and then we can bring you in. So yeah, the number again is 669-900-6833, and the meeting ID is 818-906-346, and then hit pound and then hit pound again, and then that should allow you to come on into the call. So the number is right. If you have any problems dialing in, just let us know. So we can go ahead and get started. So we're on the mutual fund. Oh, excuse me. I don't know why I want to keep saying mutual funds. We're on mutual insurance for the 501c15. Now remember the one that we covered yesterday. The last one that we covered yesterday was the 501c14, which were your credit unions. So you have an opportunity to start your own credit unions, and it's nonprofit.
What? We can have a credit union?
A credit union, a cemetery, and electric co-op.
So don't these sound like mechanisms to help you be on your way to self-sufficiency if applied?
Yeah, that's why the government put this stuff in there. These mechanisms in place for us to take advantage of them.
Lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my.
Really. All right. So let's get our hard hats on and let's get to work.
And
Uh,
get suited up.
uh,
Porta potty's been dropped off.
really. I'll put the link in the chat. And like I said, we'll make it possible for screen share um, Monday coming up. So a mutual insurance company is an insurance company owned entirely by its policyholders. Any profits earned by a mutual insurance company are either retained within the company or rebated to policyholders in the form of dividend distributions or reduced further premiums. In contrast, a stock insurance company is owned by investors who have purchased a company's stock. Any profits generated by a stock insurance company are distributed to the investors without necessarily benefiting the policyholders. So do y'all understand the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning any income or any profits that's derived from being in that company will benefit the members opposed to benefiting the stockholders who started the company or who purchased shares. So it's one of those situations where it's for the people, by the people, instead of for the company, by the company. Free says, haven't even started and already got disliked. Well, this ain't for everybody.
Yeah.
And again, we're not trying to be liked. So, good. The more dislikes, the better.
You can hate us now, but we won't stop now.
Oh, you can always disprove us. That'll work too.
Prove it.
So, it says the concepts of mutual insurance originated in England in the late 17th century to cover losses due to fire. The mutual casualty insurance industry began in the United States in 1752 when Benjamin Franklin established the Philadelphia contributionship of insurance of houses from loss by fire. Mutual property casualty insurance companies exist now in nearly every country around the globe. So this started in 1752 when Benjamin Franklin established a Philadelphia contributionship for insurance of houses from loss by fire. I wonder if they had anything to do with the White House catching fire.
Hmm.
Then it reads the global trade associations. Remember we talked about trade associations in the other or the previous 501cs
Yep.
for industry. The International Cooperative of Mutual Insurance Federation claims 216 members in 74 countries, in turn representing over 400 insurers. In North America, the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies, NAMIC, founded in 1895, is the sole representative of U.S. and Canadian mutual insurance companies in the areas of advocacy and education. Recent developments in the United States from the mutual holding company structure was first introduced in Iowa in 1995 and has spread since then. There have been concerns that mutual holding company conversion is disadvantageous for the owners of the company, the policyholders. The major disadvantage of mutual insurance companies is the difficulty of raising capital. In the 111th Congress, Carolyn Maloney sponsored a bill that she claimed would have protected mutual holding company owners. The measure, H.R. 3291, died in committee. Mutual holding companies are one of many to undergo privatization, also called demutualization. So, apparently, according to this, the mutual companies or the mutual holding companies where the policyholders are actually own the company and they are receiving the benefits as policyholders, there is some challenges. One, we can see that there's not many people doing it, or there's not that many companies. Matter of fact, it states that the International Cooperative of Mutual Insurance Federation claims 216 members in 74 countries. That's not a lot. And over 400 insurers. So there's basically over 400 mutual insurance companies globally. That's not that much.
No, not globally.
So it says Carolyn Maloney sponsored a bill that she claimed would help protect the mutual holding company owners. The measure H.R. 3291. Let me open this up to see what the proposal was. I'll put it in the chat. And also, when we are looking at these House resolutions, you can actually get alerted anytime there's an update to any particular resolution. So what I do is
Yep.
I actually go to Congress.gov, and anything pertaining to Indians, I put an alert on my phone. So any updates on these House resolutions, it becomes one of the alerts that I get. So let me see what I can find about this House resolution bill. I put the link. All right, I put the link in the chat. So it takes you to House.gov. So it says Mutual Holding Company Beneficial Owners Protection Act of 2009. Mutual Holding Company Beneficial Owners Protection Act of 2009 amends the Homeowners Loan Act, the Federal Deposit Insurance Act, the Bank Holding Act to prohibit any savings association, savings and loan holding company, insured depository institution, or bank holding company that is a subsidiary of a mutual holding company for establishing or implementing any plan or plan amended to award stock options or to provide stock or any stock interest as compensation or benefits to either management or employees unless a majority of the total non-mutual holding company votes eligible to be cast for it to be approved. So basically, this is not just a bill to help or protect the mutual holding companies, but also it talks about the Homeowners Land Act, the Loan Act, and the Federal Deposit Insurance Act, and the Bank Holding Act. And here's one of the things that we need to understand about these House resolutions. They attach riders or they attach other things to these bills. So just because the name is one thing, but there are a lot of other acts that get affected or get enacted when these bills become law. So just something to keep in pay attention to. So I'm gonna see how much more information I can get on this. Give me a second. So it looks like they don't want stockholders to have the ability to benefit from this unless there's a serious majority vote. But it died, so that means it never got pushed forward. So I was trying to see if there was anything in there that I could share that would be beneficial to why it would have died. And basically, if you can, it looks like you can have shareholders that will still benefit, even though according to the setup of it, you're not supposed to have it. So there must be a incentive, or what some people would consider a loophole, to get around paying dividends to the board of directors, because it says that a mutual insurance company is an insurance company owned entirely by the policyholders. Any profits earned by a mutual insurance company are either retained within the company or rebated to policyholders in the form of dividend distributions or reduced future premiums. So I think I know what happened. And this is a thing that many people don't understand about Constitution and bylaws either. Constitution and bylaws are living entities and they're living documents. And as you continue to have your meetings, it's always preferred to have them quarterly, and there are any changes, you can actually propose those changes and upload them. And in many cases, if there is not any, I guess for lack of a better term, resistance from the IRS because you've uploaded it and they go and review it, then you can keep doing it. Because what hems up a lot of people is not what's known by the IRS, it's what's not known. And I said it again. Many of the times people get hemmed up by the IRS because of not what is known, it's from what is not known. So when it comes to IRS and just specifically your 501Cs, the more information that you provide, the more detailed you are, the more likely it is for them to stay out your business. So it seems as that's what some of these mutual insurance companies are doing. They've updated their bylaws and in their constitutions, and they've added where certain members of the board who didn't set up the nonprofit are being able to benefit because it says the mutual insurance company are either retained, so the profits are retained within the company, or rebated. So if they're retained within the company and then they send some of those profits in the form of dividends to the stockholders or to the board members, then that could be considered problematic. So that's probably what that bill was about. But I'll do a little bit more research and try to get back with you on that to see why that bill died and how these mutual insurance companies are actually circumventing what the 501c was preventing. So, anything that anyone want to add about the 501c 15 mutual insurance companies? I take that to be a no. Grand Rising Brittany Davis. So that was a 501c 15. And now we're going to move on to the 501c 16, which are your cooperative organizations to finance crop operations. And of course, it doesn't give me a link. So I'm going to see if I can find out exactly what that is. A cooperative organizations to finance crop operations. So I would think that has something to do with farming, right? Let's see, what do we have? Pull it up. Once it comes up and I can see it. Alright, so I got this information. See, this comes up in the form of a PDF from the IRS. So I will post it. That way you can follow along with it. And if there's some information that you have that you can add to it, please by all means do so. And if there's something that we missed that you would like for us to cover, we can do that as well. Just let us know. So, according to this, this is the audit guidelines for corporations organized to finance crop operations. The background information on this says the IRC Section 501C16 exempts from federal income tax corporations organized by the IRC Section 521 Farmers Cooperative Marketing or Purchasing Association or members for financing the members or other producers of crop organizations. So right here, it already states that you have farmers in cooperative marketing or purchasing association or members for financing the members. So these individuals are responsible for financing farmers or dealing with financing the crops that they have or the equipment for the crops. It says the financial cooperation must operate in conjunction with the marketing and purchasing association. So I guess we'll find out what the marketing purchasing associations are. And so in this audit, it basically states determine whether the organizing farmers cooperative is exempt and actually following policy. It says it covers compensation and unemployment benefits for farmers. So they're supposed to be inspecting the governing instruments, evaluate the organization's operations, determine whether the organizing IRC Section 521 organizations or members hold substantially all of voting stock or non-voting preferred stock if issued, and make sure they can't participate in the organizer's profits beyond a fixed dividend rate. And they are supposed to verify the legal rate of interest in the state where incorporated, making sure that they're not overcharging as far as the interest, overcharging as far as interest. And it says 8% per year on the cost of stock when issued. And also they're supposed to determine if there is reserve and the purpose, and the need and reasonableness of the reserves, meaning the reserves in case something happens, and also find out if state law requires a reserve. For example, a reasonable reserve for erecting buildings required in business operation. So like Dudu says, it covers compensation and unemployment benefits for farmers. So you think that could be beneficial for Indians? I'm just saying. I'll take the silence as a yes. Let's see. So Free says, heck yeah. Of course. All right, so that was a 501c16. So we had the 501c15 that covered mutual insurance companies or associations, which is in a cooperative for the shareholders who are actually not the shareholders, but the policyholders are actually the owners of the company, and any dividends or profits are supposed to go back into the company. You say you want me to go back? Okay, where you want me to go back?
Man, I don't know because of this Walmart phone, but my phone is only at 28% after all this time. Hope you all can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear
What we're going to discover is a lot of these so-called insurance companies that we think cover our house and vehicles. You'll find out why it was started. I put in the chat farmers insurance. Some people may have farmers insurance
you.
for to cover their home or auto.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually that falls under the category of this 501c that covers the farmers for their benefits and unemployment benefits. So a lot of these insurance companies that you'll find, Liberty Mutual covered the previous 501c that you discussed. So a lot of these insurance companies that the name we're thinking, oh, it just covers home and auto, but we'll discover how they receive monies to get started and who they fund currently. Keep going. That's why I wanted you to go back. So
Okay.
look at Farmers Insurance and State Farm, and then you'll find out who's behind these different insurance companies. I yield the mic.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you said you put it in the back chat. I can't. I'm looking at it and I can't see it.
I just put it on the chat in the YouTube because I was waiting for my phone to kind of charge a
Okay.
little. I don't want to, but
Okay.
yeah, I was just saying if I go back because of State Farm and Farmers Insurance. We see the commercials all the time about Farmers Insurance and State Farm and all that, but what's in the name? Everything.
Good gracious.
Yeah, State Farm was my first insurance company. Wow, that's crazy. State Farm, Farmers. Hmm. So there's more to it than meets the eye. Let me see if I can find that link. If I can pull it up.
Because you'll notice if there's a famine, whether it deals with dairy, especially in this area, or corn or wheat, you'll notice that the next time your premium comes up, it's a little higher than it was before. And you had no tickets, no accidents, no flooding in your home, or no acts of God, as these insurance companies call it. But yet, it's like, why did my premium go up from the last time when I signed my policy initially? Just keep watching on the famines and all that stuff because when that drought was going on in the Midwest,
Mm-hmm.
you had all your dairy, all your beef, your corn, your wheat. Not only did the prices start going up in the stores, but your premiums went up, your policy went up.
Hmm. Grand Rising Big Hawk. That I never even noticed or even paid any attention to. So thank you for sharing it. And you said you put it in the in
Yeah, I
the
was just putting the names in there in the chat on
okay.
YouTube.
Let me do
All right, sorry about that, y'all. I'm back.
let me do so farmers. Let's look up farmers. All right, so it says not to be confused with State Farm Insurance. It says Farmers Insurance Group, informally Farmers, is an American insurer group of automobiles, homes, and small businesses, and also provides other insurance and financial service products. Farmers Insurance has more than 48,000 exclusive and independent agents with approximately 21,000 employees, and is a subsidiary of the Swiss company Zurich Insurance Group. Wow, Zurich. Put a pin in that.
Oh, real quick before you go deeper,
Mm-hmm.
much love and respect for Tifton. Had a neighbor that just doing a listening party this rising with 30 new people.
That's awesome. That is phenomenal. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Shout out to Tifton.
I know exactly right. Shout out to Tiffany. That's what's up. So I'm reading the history of farmers because as Brother James just broke down to us, farmers insurance is actually a 501c16, which is a what was it? A mutual insurance company. And it says the farmers' future company founders John C. Tyler and Thomas E. Levy first met after Tyler moved to California. Tyler and Levy had both grown up with rural backgrounds and believed that farmers and ranchers who had better driving records than urbanites deserved lower insurance premiums. During the 1920s, farmers across the United States were establishing their own mutual insurance firms and cooperatives in order to have less expensive policy. Tyler, the son of a South Dakota insurance salesman, and Levy, who had formerly worked for the Federal Farm Loan Bureau and National Farm Loan Association. See the connection? Recognize that these farmers, ranchers, and other rural drivers were an overlooked market and wished to create their own auto insurance firm. It says in 1927, Tyler and Levy received a loan from the founder of Bank of America and enabled them to start their company. 1928, Tyler and Levy opened the doors to their newly founded company, Farmers Automobile Intersurance Exchange, in downtown Los Angeles, California. Tyler served as president and Levy was vice president. A sales manager and secretary completed the four-employee team. On March 28th, 1928, the first meeting of the Board of Governors was convened. 2 days later, Charles Briscoe insured his 1925 Cadillac Phaeton and became the first farmer's customer. And then in 1935 they had the Trucks Insurance Exchange. And in 1936, the Farmers Insurance Exchange was named the leading reciprocal in earned premiums for auto insurance by a nationwide underwriter. Then it gives you a basic breakdown of the different milestones that these companies had. But they're not mentioning the fact that they're tied directly to the crops and things of that nature, like the 501c stipulates. But it's a subsidiary of the Zurich Insurance Group. So let's see who the Zurich Insurance Group are. Because how are you a subsidiary to an insurance company that's not even in the United States? Grand Rising Macadon 1. Zurich Insurance Group Ltd. is a Swiss insurance company commonly known as Zurich, headquartered in Zurich, Switzerland. The company is Switzerland's largest insurer. As of 2017, the group is the world's 91st largest public company according to Forbes' Global 2000 list. And in 2011, it ranked 94th in Interbrand's top 100 brands. Zurich is a global insurance company which is organized into three core business segments: general insurance, global life, and farmers. Zurich employs almost 54,000 people serving customers in more than 170 countries and territories around the globe. The company is listed on the SIX Swiss Exchange. As of 2012, it had shareholders' equity of $34.494 billion.
What?
Yeah. Now, this company was founded in 1872 as a marine reinsurance under the name, I am not pronouncing that. I will put it in the chat and y'all can,
So one of them names that you know you're gonna mess up.
do.
It don't got all the letters in the alphabet in it, do it.
Okay. It's Veris Jurgens Veering, whatever. It just says Insurance Association. It's a subsidiary of Swiss Marine Company. In 2000, after a number of acquisitions, it was unified to form the holding company, Zurich Financial Services. In 2012, Zurich Financial Services Ltd. changed its name to Zurich Insurance Group Ltd. In a statement, the group explained the rationale behind the name change. In recognition of this strategic focus, the reference to financial services in the company name has been replaced by indicating the insurance activity of the group instead of specifying the purpose accordingly. It says in December 2015, the group CEO Martin Sen, who committed suicide on May 27, 2016, announced his resignation. Despite years of highly profitable business operations, the focus was put on recent events which forced Mr. Sen to step down, and interim chairman Tom DeSwan took over as acting CEO.
Translation to me seemed like he got muscled out his own company.
Sound like. On 26 January 2016, it was announced that Zurich had poached Mario Greco, CEO of Generali, as its next chief executive, and that he would start on 1 May. So, David Corey says all capitalism. Yeah. But that's crazy how it's a subsidiary of a Swiss insurance conglomerate.
Makes sense though.
It does. I guess.
I mean, on their end, if you're in to make a profit and you know you can, let me hush. Forgot we on YouTube.
Doodle Vision says Swiss equals offshore accounts. Right, so if you make it a subsidiary of it, then it's legal.
Yep.
And of course, your cars are known as household goods. That is true. Grand Rising Indigenous American Leo.
Peace.
Indigenous American Leo says, y'all heard of Verisign? Yeah, I've heard of Verisign.
Yep. Because if I remember correctly, what's in a Swiss account is private, ain't it?
Mm-hmm. They've been certain politicians and certain government officials have been trying to get that information to be released for a long time without any headway. Again, because they're lobbyists that want to keep it private. So it is American Leo. He says, it's used to spy on American people. I mean, we got so many mechanisms used to spy on us under the Patriot Act. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, your cell phone and flat screen TV.
So that was a 501c16, which is the cooperative organizations to finance crop operations, aka Farmers, State Farm Insurance, and other insurance agencies. So now we have our 501c17, which are your supplemental unemployment benefit trusts. And of course, there's no link to it, so we have to look it up. So what is a supplemental unemployment benefit trust? It says a supplemental unemployment benefit plan is a tax-exempt section of the 501c17 plan or trust established to provide severance pay to workers laid off due to reduction in force or plant closing that supplements state unemployment insurance benefits. Let me go ahead and pull this up so I can send it to the chat. And this is from the website SHRM. I guess it's a human resources website. So I'll read a couple of paragraphs and we can see if we can get to the bottom of this. 501c17. It says during a RIF when cash is low, severance pay and related payroll taxes can be costly for an employer. Establishing a tax qualified plan that allows an employer to pay weekly severance payments to supplement state unemployment benefits not only lowers the payroll tax obligation, but lessens the impact of lump sum payments on an organizational cash flow. Is this a new plan that the IRS has just released? No, far from it. These plans have been around since the late 1950s when the unions were concerned with mechanization and cyclical industries, where seasonal and permanent layoffs were frequent and unemployment benefits were not substantial enough to support a laid off worker. Strongly fueled by the auto and metal industries, sub-plans were first almost exclusively used in collective bargaining agreements. But the tax code applies to all employers, and as of late, these plans are getting more attention from corporate America. So how does it work? Subplans can be funded by employers only, employees only, or a mix of both. For non-union environments, subplans are generally funded by the employer only, and the funds placed in the plan take the place of normal severance payments that would incur FICA, FUTA, and SUTA taxes, saving the company money up front. The employee also gains as payments from a subplan are not subject to FICA taxes. The plan payment structure must take into account state unemployment benefits rates, and combined unemployment and subplan payments must equal what the laid off workers' wages were before the layoff. For instance, if a state unemployment benefit is $300 per week and the employee's weekly pay had been $600 per week, the employer would fund the trust with $300 to make up the difference, and the laid off worker receives full severance pay between the two payments. The employer only has to front $300 per week, and they save on payroll taxes, both of which help to reduce the RIF costs and constraints. The employee takes the $300 from the subplan without incurring a FICA tax, so they come out ahead as well. Subplans have many requirements, such as a written plan document and timely IRS filings, and must be used only by workers laid off or with reduced hours due to a reduction in force or a plant or operation closing. A great deal of time can be spent administering such a program, but there are several providers that specialize in these plans and can provide soup to nuts administrations if need be. For more information, see IRS Publication 557. LJ Free says, I keep hearing unemployment income, which is a benefit that gets issued as an insurance. Yeah, that's the same thing I'm hearing, Free. Unemployment insurance is what it is called. Yeah, but this unemployment insurance is either funded by the employer solely, the employee solely, or a mixture of both. So, and I bet you there are programs that can actually initially fund and continue to fund it so you or one will not have to continue to come out their pocket. How much you want to bet that's the case? Because we're saying for every organization, there's an organization to support it and to keep that currency flowing. Doodle Vision says it's a way around income taxes. Indigenous American Leo says it's your money, and both of those are facts. So now we know what supplemental unemployment benefit trusts are. So now we're gonna move. But before we move to that, is there anything that anybody wanted to add about the supplemental unemployment benefits trust? 501c17s. Macadon one says, "What a tangle web they have lain." Most definitely. Indigenous American Leo says, unemployment benefits is money you already work for. Yeah. And LJ Free writes, so this is another example of how money continues to be recycled.
Yeah, they have to recycle money, and I'm glad she mentioned that because the feds only print the amount of what somebody take a loan out for. They never print the interest. So you have to recycle the money to keep it floating around.
Yeah, because what happens if you don't have a consistent flow of current in your household? You have a black,
Sure.
you have a shutdown, right? What happens if your water source is not flowing? You have it becomes dead. Nothing lives, right? It needs to keep moving.
Yep.
Antonio Batista says not recycled, paid for it. Well, it's how about this? It's paid for in circuits through conduits or through businesses and nonprofits and not for profits.
Yeah, because it's never was new printed money. They just flipping it over and over and over and over and over.
Antonio says they blew our parents' money on other crap and blowing our money on our parents. Well, that's the cycle you end up in if you are the employee.
Yes. See, that's the part that people got to look at. If you're the employee, yeah, that's the loop that you on, the hamster wheel, if I might say.
If you are the employer, now you are on the chessboard, so to speak.
Yes. And a lot of people look at these systems and get mad. No, the problem isn't the systems. The problem is we didn't have the knowledge of it so we can use it for ourselves. Example, we just went through insurance companies. So by learning this information, what it tells me is we can have our own insurance companies for our people.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
You know what I'm saying? I don't get mad at the system, and I can't get mad at the players if I'm not playing. We say this in the hood all the time. If you ain't playing, well, how you gonna get mad? We're learning in real time that these systems exist. We're learning the qualifications that it takes to apply for them. So as we move forward, we apply and we start building our own.
Antonio says Tesla's working on a manufacturer provided insurance. So yeah, so basically what he's doing is the same thing that already exists.
That's it.
He's taking advantage of it.
That's just like Antonio, if you started a company and you did the same thing, but the difference is we don't have to take advantage of our people. We use the systems how it's supposed to be used correctly.
Macadon says, "I told him I'm not paying you for my money. Damn it." Well, as you know, when it comes to businesses and as it comes to consumers, we all know that all excesses and all increases gets passed on to the consumer. That's why it's better to be a producer than the consumer.
I
And
done heard this stuff rolls downhill. Last man on the hill gonna get it.
And Copper Color Queen said, I guess I paid enough into it because I went through 4 tiers of unemployment benefits when the recession hit in '08. David Corey said, same here. And this is Emma and Leo says, Macadon, they just sent a few threatening letters. But at the end of the day, it's something that we have the ability to not only take advantage of, but we also have the ability to help
Others,
move forward and grow and become self-sufficient because that's what we're about.
for example, you start, and then you started an insurance company for your community, for your people. Now, instead of taking that money outside to foreign owned entities, they're spending it into their own, into a business that's in their own neighborhoods. See, the problem is, like TMA said, when you're the consumer, but complaining about the benefits. We gotta change our focus. We have to start asking everybody else to change, and we gotta change our focus and play ball. Become the producers again. Become the owners again.
Yeah, I'm looking for an example of the employee-funded pension trust, because pensions are almost non-existence. They went from pensions to five to full, was it 401k?
Yeah, a little nasty piece of written. Ooh,
And 401k was probably the worst things that was ever invented.
yes, sir. That deserves a show down the line by itself.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of a pension. Here in the state of Texas, educators, we don't pay Social Security, or what we would pay in Social Security goes into a pension fund. And when we retire, we receive our pension. So that's a prime example. And what they do is they take our funds that we would normally pay for Social Security, and they pretty much play the market. They'll put it in the different stocks and bonds and all of that. But when it comes to us time to retire, once we've vested, however much once we're fully vested, then we receive that pension, get a monthly check. So a lot of that's why I can say Texas is totally different. Like we are truly a republic and not part of the lower 48. So, but that's the prime example of a pension that we do here in the state of Texas as far as educators.
So it's basically, as you were saying, Doodle Vision, the application of the system, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And the majority of things that you're gonna come across have duality, meaning it can be used for good or bad. It's up to the user to decide. We can decide to take these same systems and lift ourselves and our people up.
And the interesting part, if not the annoying part, is that these mechanisms have been in place the whole time. We just were not either privy to them or not taking advantage of them or misinformed about them.
And the majority of and you mentioned before about that cycle, the majority of our pension or what we invest into that before we receive, our compensation for separation, whether we retire or whatever, the separation from, you know, the educational system. A lot of those funds are invested in energy companies because it's not a quick you get some people invest in all these people, these companies, they go all over the nation and say, oh, you invest in this and you'll become a millionaire overnight. Well, energy companies are not going to get you rich overnight, but the value increases steadily. And
Always
so,
rising.
yep, and that's why if we have to go, say if we have an emergency, medical emergency, and we have to pull some money out, we're paying uh, a fee for getting our own money out. The prime example that I could give, one of my favorite movies for different reasons is It's a Wonderful Life. I know that's an oldie but goodie. If anybody's ever seen that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. But there's a one
Bingo.
scene when the stock market crashed and everybody wanted their money out of the savings and loan. And he was like, well, your money's in his house and your money's in her house and your money's in his house. The interest, because they knew, because these banks, these financial institutions are saying, we are using the money that you're putting into our institution and we're loaning it out. And we're hoping this person is able to pay it back with the interest. And then we'll put it and we'll use your money and that when they pay their interest, we'll put it and give someone else a loan and charge us interest. And that's all they're doing. It's a shell game. If you ever been to New York City and they had that ball and they got those three shells and they moving it around and you trying to figure out where the ball is and the ball is in their back pocket. I
The
yield the
whole
mic.
time. the whole time. And to put it into a turn to where a lot of us can get in our neighborhoods, there's stores that's owned by people that don't live in our neighborhood. But we constantly take our finances and spend with the individual that has the store that don't live from our neighborhood. Now he's gonna go back to his neighborhood. Now guess where he's spending your money? In his neighborhood. So the money is recycling and it does benefit. The problem is we're not recycling it in our neighborhoods. We're giving it away and letting everybody else do business with our money.
That's facts. Mhm.
And that's what they figured out in Black Wall Street. Recycle your dollars in your community.
Just imagine you have 6, 7 businesses of our own in your neighborhood that supplies resources that's needed on a daily basis for that neighborhood. And the owners and the employees of these companies also from your neighborhood. So when that money is spent, it's spent in the neighborhood. We want to at least spend our money, flip our money amongst ourselves at least 8 to 9 times before we let it go outside of our communities. It's like how we read before. We went from being producers to being the consumers. So most of us, not all of us, we work check to check and we be done spent it on things we don't need. And it's not knocking how anybody want to, it's your right. But what I'm saying is if we want to make a change, then we have to be willing to sacrifice certain things and certain habits we picked up along the way for the greater good.
And LJ Free said that's why these are tax codes. We'll see it more and more very soon. And Mr. TJ says, so will the credit union give your paper when that's exactly what the credit unions have their insurance for. When it does hit the fan, it proved back when there was a crash in 2008. All those people that were in the credit unions, they were redeemed, where the banks were not. So hopefully that answers your question. We covered that yesterday when we were talking about the credit unions.
Yeah,
Mr.
because the
TJ.
banks got to bail out. You ain't had no credit unions and they're financial institutions who back the banks. Oh,
That's the funny part, right?
that's the thing that just dawned on me. Some of these major banks are insured by these companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So behind the scenes, a lot of these banks got their money back and got a bailout.
Yeah. Double or triple dipping.
Hmm.
Double dribbling and triple dribbling.
Especially the company with the stagecoach.
Round them
Horse
up.
and carriage is for hire.
LG says they don't have a choice. We're not asking, we're demanding in the right way. Of course. We're not going to be just coming to the table, holding our hand out. We're coming to the table, and we're going to be making decisions. And because you said you got to realize what table when you say come to the table, are you going to the kiddie table or are you going to the table where the adults at?
I'm saying where the grown folks at.
Something to think about.
A whole lot of tables, a whole lot of tables. I said it before and I mentioned it again. Why are we throwing darts at the map blindfolded? We know where we want to go. So let's walk up to the map and place the dart.
So that was a 501c18 employee funded pension trust created before June 25th, 1959. So David Corey says, "All right, Martin Luther, we coming to get that check." That's right, David. We coming to get that check because now we know where the money is. And Antonio says, "Because Jedi's move in silence." So y'all ready to go to the 501c19, which is basically the 501c19?
Let's do it.
So post or organizations of past or present members of the armed forces, 501c19. So let's see what that is.
That's like some good news when you laugh like that to me.
All right. For people just tuning in that don't know, when you hear that laugh, make sure you got your steel toes on, your hard hat, and strap all the way down, double strap, because this is going to get deep.
So the 501c19. You can't make this up. The United States Armed Forces are the military forces of the United States of America. It consists of the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. The President of the United States is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and forms military policy with the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security, both federal executive departments acting as principal organs by which military policy is carried out. All 5 armed services are among the 7 uniformed services of the United States.
Hold up, before you go anymore.
Why they mention
Could that be why the position of president, which is a CEO, which draws a base salary, the president only makes $300,000 and it can't be negotiable? Huh?
I got man. Okay, no, I'm going on mute.
Told y'all, double strap, hard hats, steel toe boots. We ain't playing.
Doodle Vision says USAA. Yeah, that's an insurance company.
Yes, it is. And don't the branches have their credit unions too?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Double strapped.
Grand Rising, Carrie Bay. Macadam says, what? Marla P says, wow, no idea. Doodle Vision says, Geico. David Carey says, nonprofit.
Yep. Go look up what Geico stands for.
Uh-huh. But when you go in there, make sure now, double strapped.
So, y'all ready for me to continue reading? Because this is about to get interesting. So, from the time of its inception, the U.S. Armed Forces played a decisive role in the history of the United States. A sense of national unity and identity was forged as a result of victory in the First Barbary War and Second Barbary War. Even so, the founders of the United States were suspicious of permanent military force. It played a critical role in the American Civil War, continuing to serve as armed forces of the United States. Although a number of its officers resigned to join the military of Confederate states, the National Security Act of 1947, adopted following World War II and during the Cold War's onset, created a modern U.S. military framework. The act established the National Military Establishment, headed by Secretary of Defense, and created the Department of Armed Force and National Security Council. It was amended in 1949, renaming the National Military Establishment the Department of Defense, and merged the cabinet-level Department of the Army, Department of the Navy, and the Department of the Air Force into the Department of Defense.
Question: what is the largest branch of government that consumes the most finances?
Department of Defense.
Didn't we read before in nonprofit organizations that you're allowed to spend? Let me stop. I don't want to shake nobody. It's a Friday. I ain't gonna do it to them.
The U.S. Armed Forces are one of the largest militaries in terms of number of personnel. It draws its personnel from a large pool of paid volunteers. Although conscription has been used in the past in various terms of both war and peace, it has not been used since 1973. But selective service system retains the power to conscript males and requires all male citizens and residents residing in the U.S. between the ages of 18 to 25 registered with the service. On February 22nd, 2019, however, a federal judge ruled that registering only males for selective service is unconstitutional. So it says, this is the part that I read and glossed over, but I need y'all to hear this. It says the U.S. Armed Forces are one of the largest militaries in terms of the number of personnel. It draws its personnel from a large pool of paid volunteers. The one thing they used to drill in our head when we was in basic training was, you volunteered for this, ain't nobody make you do it.
But hold on. What type of organizations that we're reading about that takes on volunteers to do the work?
Non-profits.
Yep. Just had a conversation with someone that's near and dear to me last night about paid volunteers. Just because you hear the word volunteer does not mean that you're not going to be compensated.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that compensation isn't negotiable. It's already written in because if you have a nonprofit, you have to submit a budget with salaries in place already.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we rewind back to a couple of days ago, we learned about how these nonprofits can take in donations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can take in an unlimited amount of donations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unlimited.
Then they can turn around and spend 49.9% of their total intake,
That unlimited amount that we were just talking about,
on campaigning for candidates and stuff, right? And policies, right?
Mm-hmm.
What up, man?
Isn't there an ROTC and a recruiting thing in every high school in America? And I'm gonna stop right there.
Man, y'all play too much. I'm about to get booked. I ain't talking to you.
Say that part one more time.
Isn't there ROTC, junior ROTC, and recruiters at every high school across America?
Affirmative.
I would say yes. And what did we talk about when it came to the National Football League? Who is one of their biggest contributors? The Department of Defense.
And didn't we read that the majority of nonprofits do business together?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, recruiting campuses in high school, be all you can be, all these commercials we see on TV is a service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I don't know if everybody's seeing this.
Yeah, this is wild, Free. This is very wild. So wild that it's crazy, but you're starting to see how everything culminates and comes together, and why we've been playing on the wrong chessboard.
And they hit you with the Jedi mind trick, how they went from armed forces to armed services.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, ha ha.
That's how you can become a nonprofit, by providing the service. And Mr. TJ says my head and stomach hurt. We just got started. Don't go nowhere.
Yeah. We ain't even in the deep end yet.
And Antonio Batiste says, need y'all to repeat louder in layman's terms so I can hear you over the customer in front of
Antonio, he's stupid.
He says, make my customer hear you. I might have to panic and try to mute the phone. Y'all are crazy. David Corey, stop it. And why y'all
Yep,
tell
I
them I
just
laugh? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and then we read
Like
that
it
these
doesn't sound like
nonprofits. No, then we read a branch of these nonprofits are all over the globe.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there a U.S. military base all over the globe?
Mm-hmm.
Don't they also set up shop in other countries and recruit the people of them countries into the U.S. military?
Mm-hmm.
Not to forget, the government also falls under nonprofit. Oops.
That's how they exactly. That's how they operate. Again, as we always say and have always said, he says a whole lot be quiet. They unintentionally listening. They can't help it. Like we've always said and we always say, our ancestors who wrote these constitutions, the Indians, have been living this lifestyle thousands of years before the Europeans came over here. They took our system of nonprofit and they escorted us out the door. And in most instances, with our help. Now that we've walked out the door, we're acting like we can't find a door to walk back in. These doors are still open. All we have to do is walk back through.
It shows these entities are still here today. The door is still open. That's how they. I'm a hush.
And Tony Betty says, I'm in Mercedes dealership in Annapolis. All upper class. Quite. Y'all slapping them and snitching at the same time. So, knowing that the United States Armed Services are a nonprofit, and knowing that they operate in concert with other nonprofits, i.e., the NFL, and knowing that they can receive unlimited amount of contributions from other nonprofits, let's see how much money they actually spend.
Hold up. So technically, the Department of Defense pays the NFL and all other sports players at the end of the day.
Well, they are well. We can't say pay all of them because you got to remember all these nonprofits are feeding one another. They're circulating
Yeah.
the money, so a large part of that money is going towards the NFL. I would dare say, and in return for their service, you have the soldiers there. You have the planes flying overhead.
No, the only reason I said that because the funds for that goes to the NFL. Then the NFL dispersed that funds among the team owners,
Hmm.
and the team owners disperse the funds out to the agents and stuff towards the players. Yeah,
Right.
breaking it down.
Got it. Yes. Thank you for that. So, as of 2019, the U.S. spends about $686.1 billion annually to fund its armed forces and overseas contingency operations. As of 2018, the U.S. constitutes roughly 36% of the world's military expenditures. Are y'all hearing this? As of 2018, the U.S. constitutes roughly 30% of the world's military expenditures. The U.S. Armed Forces has significant capabilities in both defense and power projection due to its large budget resulting in advanced and powerful technologies which enables a widespread deployment of the forces around the world, including around 800 military bases outside the United States. The U.S. Air Force is the world's largest air force. The U.S. Navy is the world's largest navy by tonnage. And the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Marine Corps combined are the world's second largest air arm. In terms of size, the U.S. Coast Guard is the world's 12th largest naval force. The U.S., as of 2019, has about 14,061 aircraft in inventory.
Who we fighting again?
We ain't fighting nobody. This should make individuals who want to become sovereign and think they're going to take up arms against the largest the largest air force in the world. not not in North America, not in
Not
South
South.
America, but the whole world.
Where you going again?
I got one word for you. If you think you're gonna take on the military, airstrikes.
Let that marinate.
That's right, David. The whole world. Copper Color Queen says, "What? Department of Defense pay NFL salaries? Every time you see, if you ever notice, the only time that there's not a soldier singing the national anthem is during the Super Bowl or during maybe a Monday night game when they have a special guest. But for the most part, there's a soldier that sings the national anthem because you know that
Armed guards.
yeah, so you know that the military also has a band.
Plays at the NFL games.
Hmm.
Stand for the flag.
Got the color guard. They pay the NFL to do that. The NFL doesn't pay them to do it.
And
Yeah.
like I said, by default, the NFL pays the team owners, and the team owners pay the agents, and the agents pay the players. So by default, yes.
So if you think about it, the reason why, like he's right, the choir, the reason why the NFL is paid by the Department of Defense is because that's free advertisement. Why do you think the NFL is the most patriotic sports? They're getting paid to advertise for the Department of Defense.
Yeah, they don't love the country like that.
So let's go into the history, shall we? The history of the U.S. Armed Forces dates to 14 June 1775 with the creation of the Continental Army. Even before the Declaration of Independence marked the establishment of the United States, the Continental Navy, established on 13 October 1775, the Continental Marines, established on 10 November 1775, were created in closed session by the Second Continental Congress in order to defend the new nation against the British Empire in the American Revolutionary War. These forces demobilized in 1784 and after the Treaty of Paris ended the War for Independence. The Congress of the Confederation created a current United States Army on 3 June 1784. The United States Congress created the current United States Navy on 27 March 1794 and the current United States Marine Corps on 11 July 1798. All three services trade their origins to their respective continental predecessors. In 1787, adoption of the Constitution gave Congress the power to raise and support armies, to provide and maintain a navy, and to make rules for government and regulation of land and naval forces, as well as the power to declare war. The President is the U.S. Armed Forces Commander in Chief. He only becomes the Commander in Chief or War Chief during a war. LJ Free says these days are sounding real familiar. Yes, they are. It says the U.S. Coast Guard traces its origins to the founding of the Revenue Cutter Service on 4 August 1790, which merged with the United States Life Saving Service on 28 January 1915, established the Coast Guard. The United States Air Force was established as an independent service on 18 September 1947.
TMH, you said 1790?
Yeah.
Isn't that when the census?
Hmm.
If I'm gonna start keeping track on who's in the country, I would have to have a way of limiting who can come in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I'm all right. Sorry for the interruption.
No, I'm just saying I didn't say the president was elected during the wars. I said the president is the war chief. That's the only time he's the war chief is during a war. Because if you know anything about Indians, you have an Indian, you have a war chief, and you have a peace chief. So during the war times, the war chief is the one that has the ability to sign the treaties and declare war after taking up counsel. And once the war is declared, then the war chief moves forward. The war chief is the only chief that can actually sign a war of declaration or a peace treaty, just like the president of the United States. The United States Coast Guard traces its origins to the founding of the Revenue Cutter Service. What is a Revenue Cutter Service? Because it says on 4 August 1970, they merged with the United States Life Saving Service. So let's look at the Life Saving
I know
Service.
a cutter is a ship.
Right. Right, because they established the Coast Guard.
Yeah. So if you're gonna start a census to count who in the country, you have to have a way to limit who's coming in.
Right. So let's look at the U.S. Cutter Service. I'm putting this in the link as well. The United States Revenue Cutter Service was established by an act of Congress on 4 August 1790 as a revenue marine upon the recommendation of Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton to serve as an armed customs enforcement to control who's coming in and out of the borders. As time passed, the service gradually gained missions either voluntarily or by legislation, including those of military nature. It was generally referred to as a Revenue Marine until 31 July 1894, when it was officially renamed the Revenue Cutter Service. The Revenue Cutter Service operated under the authority of the U.S. Department of Treasury. On 28 January 1915, the service was merged by an act of Congress with the United States Life Saving Service to form the United States Coast Guard.
Ha ha. Oh, I should have gave a warning. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Immediately after the American Revolutionary War, the United States was struggling to stay afloat financially. National income was desperately needed, and the government determined that a great deal of its income would come from tariffs on imports. Because of rampant smuggling, the need was immediate for strong enforcement of tariff laws. On 4 August 1790, the United States Congress, urged on by Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton, created a revenue marine, later renamed the Revenue Cutter Service by Act of 31 July 1894. And free says that's why they've been at war for well over 200 years, and most of those wars are against American Indians. Tie that to 1828 definition of American. Hashtag war chief. And it makes you think, because here's the thing. It mentions that they needed to enforce tariffs, but it's kind of hard to enforce tariffs if you have people smuggling in goods. So let me ask you this question: who would be the individuals that will be smuggling in goods?
Ha ha.
Because at this time, immigrants don't have access to boats. They don't know the waterways.
They're paying captains to be bought over here.
Exactly. So who are the smugglers, as they're calling, that they're putting tariffs on?
And to add just another layer on, since you can remember, the president has been signing all trade treaties,
Mm-hmm.
all wars in our whole lifetime. So the only time the president has that power is when America is at war. If they not at war with no foreign country, why does he still have that say so?
Because he's at war with us.
Now do you understand the illusion to fool us that we're always fighting somebody outside of this country? How? They have over 800 and something bases outside of the country. Who are we fighting out there? Well, who are they fighting out there?
Well, let's look at it different. Let's look at it a little bit differently now. Now we have domestic terrorists, right? So we talked about the the extremist, what was it? The extremist, the black identity extremist list, right? So you have the black identity extremist groups, and there is there appears to be a concerted effort to deter this type of what they call domestic terrorism, right? But let me ask you this question: how many Indians, melanated Indians, are part of these groups? I'll wait. I'm gonna ask that question again. You have these black identity extremist groups. You have all these movements that have quote unquote black or African American people. How many melanated Indians are part of these groups? And if you know the answer to that question, then you actually know who the real war is against. Could the real war be against people that don't know that they're Indians, and because they don't know they're Indians, it's easier to stay at war with them.
Lights turning on. Patrols in our neighborhoods. The emotional triggers that's broadcast to you through music and television and movies on a daily basis. Why is there so much money spent in propaganda directed towards you?
Indigenous American Rico says, Indigenous American Leo says the smugglers were human smugglers. They put a cap on immigration. Not only was it about immigration, because they weren't. It's not just about the immigration. You got to realize, the tribe I'm from, we were the keeper of the waterways. How do we make? How are we able to maintain our families? How are we able to do what we do? Trade routes through water. We were trading with the Europeans before we invited the Europeans over here. So if we were trading with them before they came over here, we were still trading with other countries after they got here. The United States, or the 13 colonies of France and um, um, those other countries, weren't just coming over here and leaving here. We were also leaving. That's how we ended up fighting over in the opium wars.
Remember this back to the American wars and all the Indian wars. You had foreign nations that were allied with Indian tribes. We were always trading with different nations. Why else would they be allies? Then when we dig deeper into it, what were they allies for? Trade furs and goods from over here.
And how they transport those goods.
Huh?
Before there was trains, there were what? Boats, water vessels.
French and Indian War was all about fur trade.
So in order for the United States to be able to keep the smugglers, aka us, out, they had to create a coast guard. The coast guard is basically the customs of the water. It reads that a cutter vessel is a small or medium-sized boat or sailing ship built for speed and with a shallow draught. While some larger cutters had two or three masts, many cutters had only one, located more centrally on the ship than was typically of larger vessels. In modern times, any naval ship built for speed and agility is still referred to as a cutter. Basically, a speedboat.
So how many people are you smuggling on a speedboat again?
You ain't smuggling too many people on a speedboat because it's built for speed, not for.
But you're bringing in goods though. You can still keep trade. Because what was going on during the wars? You had Indians working with Europeans, cutting off trading routes to dominate it. And remember, nations split because a lot of people didn't want to go along with this business deal. They didn't stop living how they was living. What you think all the Indian wars were up to the 1900s about? Shutting us off from trading with the rest of the world. Because if you look at the reality right now, what do we produce now? Nothing. What do we trade now? Nothing. What do we manufacture now? Nothing.
And
We
before,
can see. Oh, go ahead.
now, but I said before we had treaties with the Europeans that came over here, we also had treaties with other countries. We weren't just making treaties with ourselves; we were making treaties with other countries so that we can do trade. So because the trade routes had to be cleared, and we were the only ones at that particular time who basically had carte blanche of the waters. That's why I know Europeans can come over here till we allow them to come over here. Once we allowed them to come over here, then they came over here willing. I'm James. I know you got something to say, so bless us, bro. What you got
Yeah,
for us?
let us know, please.
I apologize. I had to step out for a little bit, had a phone call. But yeah, I was still listening in. And what you mentioned about those other treaties, a prime example is your Choctaw. The the potato that everyone knows as the Irish potato is actually the Choctaw potato because we had an agreement and a treaty with the Irish. And that's why the Irish started coming over here because they were starving to death. We sent them potatoes. So we were trading all over the world. And when you mention those cutters, look at the ships. And they got the designs from the Issa. If you look at what they call the Egyptian ships, and you look at the Viking ships, and you look at those ships that were in the Pacific Islanders, they're all made the same. That's Issa going all over the world. That's a little history lesson, and I know some are probably listening in. We can go into that at another time because I know we're still hitting on these 501Cs, but that's just a little history nugget there. Look at the design of those Viking ships. Look at the design of those Egyptian ships. Look at those designs of those rowboats, those ships that you will find all in the Pacific islands. That's Issa. So that's how we were trading. Again, the Issachina platelets. Look at them. I yield the mic. Keep going. You're going in deep, brother. Way too deep. People may have to come up and get some oxygen. Make sure
James,
they
quick question. Uh, I remember reading, but I want to make sure. Isn't a part of that tribe still in South America still growing that same particular potato to this day?
yes, sir. To this very day, they are still growing it.
And for those of you who don't know or don't remember who the Issa are, those would be your Catawba soup. Catawba soup. Uh, a band of those Catawbas would be the Catawba Sapani. That's what they called us. The French called us soup. Some other tribes called those brand of soups Catawba, but we called ourselves Issa. So so I'm gonna keep reading and see how deep this gets. Y'all ready with y'all hard hats? This is Emarica says, save the rest for tomorrow. Bro, we only on 19. We still got a little bit ways to go and then we'll be done. Grand Rising Cop India.
Peace, copy, Indio.
Okay, he says tomorrow's Monday. Well, yeah, Monday, sorry. So under the enabling legislation, the authorized the revenue marine, the system of cutters consisted of 10 vessels were initially ordered and constructed. Two cutters were to be assigned to the coast of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, one for the Long Island Sound, one for New York, one for Bay of Delaware, two for the Chesapeake. These, of course, two ply along the neighboring coast, one for North Carolina, and one for Georgia. Yeah, I know why they stopped at Georgia, right? Because at this particular time, Florida had not been kept captive yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On
They
to,
only had 13 colonies.
It says on 21 March 1791, the first 7 masters were commissioned by President George Washington. Among those commissioned were Hopley Yeaton, John Foster Williams of Massachusetts, Jonathan Malby of Connecticut, Patrick Dennis of New York, James Montgomery of Pennsylvania, Simon Gross of Maryland, Richard Tyler of Virginia, William Coke of North Carolina was commissioned on 25 April 1791. Robert Cochran of South Carolina on 8th of May 1791. And 20 May 1791, John Howell of Georgia. Each cutter was constructed where it was to be assigned, a move by Hamilton to satisfy members of Congress and gain their votes for establishment of the services. Washington suggested to Hamilton that it would be advantageous to have each master supervise the construction of his own cutter, a suggestion that Hamilton put into use along with limitation that each cutter cost no more than 1,000 US dollars. Hamilton's cost restrictions provided unrealistic for 3 of the new cutters in Massachusetts, which was 2,050, Scammell, which was a cost of 1,255, and General Green, which cost over 1,500. The same legislation that established the 10 original cutters also provided for the complement and pay scales of the crew of each vessel. Each vessel was provided with a master with pay set at $30 per month and 3 mates at 20, 16, and 14 respectively. In addition, each cutter was allowed 4 Marines and 8 pieces and two boys at $4. And Free says Washington and Hamilton are both mentioned on fiat. So let me ask you this question. Um, the Catawba Sioux, which side did they fight on during the Revolutionary War? Anybody remember? Anybody? 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 Remember they fought on the side of the 13 colonies? And why did Hamilton suggest that it would be advantageous to have each master supervise the construction of his own cutter? If you remember what James said about the cutter. So who were helping him build these? Because remember, this is in the 1700s.
But here's the missing link that a lot of people probably gloss over. In the North, who else sided with the 13 colonies?
You had three tribes of the Haudenosaunee.
Sound like to me 3 entities coming together to do business. Not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying it looks like 3 entities came together to do some business.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me too. And it says the same legislation that
Hold
established.
on, hold on,
Go
hold on.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
3 branches of government, y'all. 3 branches of government. The representation of the 3 sides that came together to form the United States of America. I'm gone.
See, everything happens for a reason. We look because when it comes to the lessons, we still in the American Revolutionary War, right? And then this comes about, and we find out all this information under the
Non-profits.
501c19, the United States Military Service.
Because think about this, relatives. Other Indian nations didn't come in and start doing business until it was America. 1776. This is at the time to where the Indians were picking sides with the Americans and fighting other Indians. They had a band in the South a ban in the North. Wow.
And it goes on to read the same, excuse me, the same legislation that established the 10 original cutters also provided for the complement and pay scales of the crew of each vessel. Each vessel was provided with a master with pay set at $30 per month and three mates at 20 to 16 and 14 respectively. In addition, each cutter was allowed four mariners at $8 apiece and two boys at $4. Shall we dig a little deeper?
Keep going.
So early mission. Now here's where we have to sift through the minutia because they're going to incorporate some slave trade talk. So we have to do some digging on that. Between 1790 and 1798, the Revenue Marine was the only armed maritime service of the United States, as the Navy had been disbanded. Each cutter master was answerable to and received his sailing orders directly from collector of customs of the port which his ship was assigned. All crew pay requests for supplies, arrangements for repairs to the cutter, and mission-specific tasking came directly from the port's customs house. After the slave trade of 1794 was enacted, the Revenue Marine began intercepting slave ships illegally, importing slaves into the United States. This was the case from 1791 to 1871, except for the period of 1843 through 49 when oversight was vested in Revenue Marine Division of the Treasury Department. Standing orders for individual cutters were stated in general terms, allowing captains to exercise their discretion and judgment to the fullest. Captains also had far-reaching authority to seize vessels and goods in the cases in which they are liable to seizure for breaches of the revenue laws, and to send inspection parties aboard vessels already in port to ensure the cargo intended for export also did not violate revenue laws. Yet, despite these considerable authority, Alexander Hamilton, in his first letter of instruction to the captains, has specifically directed that they will always keep in mind that their countrymen are freemen, and as such are impatient of everything that bears the least mark of a domineering spirit. They will endeavor to overcome difficulties, if any are experienced, by a cool and temperate perseverance in their duty, by addresses in moderation rather than by vehemence or violence.
If this is about immigrants sneaking into the country, why is it designed to talk about commerce and trade of goods and services?
Because again, what was Alexander Hamilton's, what was his position at that time?
He was the secretary of. Oh, come back.
It's right there.
Alexander Hamilton. Hold on. Lost my spot for a second.
Alexander Hamilton was the Secretary of the
Treasury
Treasury.
of the Treasury.
That's why we start getting into commerce. Now, this goes back to Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson were bitter enemies. Alexander Hamilton wanted these masters to be in charge of the cutters because Alexander Hamilton had another plan. His plan was to have the territory known as Louisiana to be its own country. And he was going to use the Catawba Sioux to be in charge of his naval fleet. See, this is the part of the history they don't tell you. That's why the illegal Louisiana Purchase was so pertinent. And why Alexander Hamilton was pushing it, because he was making back deals with the French and the Spanish to say that everything along the Mississippi going west was going to be its own country. And the Catawba Sioux, Catawba Saponi, were going to be in charge of the naval fleet. Because then he would have had all of the Southern Confederacy under his belt to be one nation. That's just a little fun fact, history fun fact. I yield the mic.
Now, I need you to repeat that one more time, please, so people can really hear that. Please, sir.
Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson hated each other. Alexander Hamilton hated Thomas Jefferson so much that he wanted what was known as Louisiana, because at that time the French were only in charge of the port of New Orleans. They didn't have any of that. It wasn't until in 1801 when Spain said, "Here, you can have it," because the Spanish really wasn't over here like that. Because what we know as Florida today was East Florida and West Florida, which was all of your southern states along the Gulf, all the way into Texas and parts of Mexico or Mexica. All of that was West Florida. So when you get into the area of Port Arthur, Beaumont, all that area there, anything that is, if you pull up a map, anything that is east of the Brazos River going east back into what we know today as the state of Florida, all of that was called West Florida until you get into Florida where that was East Florida. So all of that area there that became known as under the quote unquote Louisiana Purchase, all that territory there, that was all of West Florida. That is why when you hear Chief Warhorse, when she's saying, "Hey, I live here in Louisiana," but when did it become Louisiana? When it's always been West Florida. I've always lived in Florida and I never moved. That's what she's referring to. Hamilton hated Thomas Jefferson and he wanted to start his own nation with the Catawba Sioux in charge of his naval fleet. And then you had all the other Southern Confederacy because you had you think about all the goods and services you already had in the South. You had sugar, you had sweet potatoes, you had peanuts, you had cotton, you had all these things, you had all the hemp. All of that was growing down in the South. What you know as the 13 colonies would have had nothing. Nothing.
Whatsoever. Now relook at the Civil War. Civil and war. Only way you have a civil war, y'all arguing over trade and finances on who gonna get what off of what goods.
Because what are you going to trade me? You're going to give me coal from West Virginia and Pennsylvania? What am I going to need that for in the South? What do the Northerners? What did they have to trade? They had absolutely nothing, because the majority of everything that was being traded all over the globe, again, sugar, your sweet potatoes, cotton, hemp, and I left out one of the biggest, tobacco. All of that was in your southern states and your southern confederacy. What did the colonies have as far as trading anything? Because even the Boston Tea Party, that wasn't dealing. We always hear about the cost of tea in China, and nobody asked the question, well, what was the battle of the tea over? The tea came from the Caribbean. That was Caribbean tea.
Mm-hmm.
Which was still controlled. You're dealing with your Yamasee, and again, your Catawba Saponi, who controlled the ships. So that's how it was going back and forth. So they saying, okay, you're going to slap a tariff on me, then you're going to tax me again when the tea started out over here anyway. That's why the Boston Tea Party took effect, why it did what it did. And see, nobody pays attention to where did the tea come from. We hear about the Boston Tea Party. We hear about people dressing up as quote unquote Indians. But why did that take place? The tea was the Caribbean tea. Everything was already, it was the South, which included the Caribbean, which included Mesoamerica, which included South America, because we were all one. And what I mean by all one, every tribe did their own thing and had their own cultures. But I mean, we were already trading amongst each other and then trading amongst other countries, nations all over the world. It hasn't changed. Go back and study the Golden Age and the Bronze Age when you deal with the Minoans. Again, getting back to those Issaquena platelets. Look at them. Look at those. Look at those. That you look at the Minoan platelets, and they have afros. What are they doing with curly froze? These are your mixed people from those that you know as the Vikings and the Issa that was shipping over there. I know we're going into another subject, and I apologize for getting on my soapbox, but I'll yield the.
No,
But it's like
this all ties in. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bones.
it's like LJ Free said. They dressed up like Indians. So let's remember at this time, the Indians of the North adopted European ways. So why would they be dressing up as Indians? To go to war and blame the Indians of the South.
And use Crispus Attucks as the martyr. Why would you use this Indian and don't let the smooth taste fool you? And they're like, oh, he was half this and half that. That is a lie from the pits of HE hockey sticks. He was a POW. And if you study Crispus Attucks, you will find out that for a good time, because he paid his debt. And he told his so-called master, hey, I paid my debt. And his so-called master wouldn't let him go. Then you read Crispus Attucks disappears for a time. Well, Crispus Attucks was a whaler. But you'll come to find out his connection to King Philip's War. It never ended. These wars have never ended. It's just a continuation, and they give you a new name. King Philip's War, French and Indian War. These are all the same wars. You get down to the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Civil War. All of these wars are one and the same. It's one
War on
continuous
drugs.
battle.
The
Yep.
war on drugs.
Yes, sir.
The war on domestic terrorism that they are propagating right now.
Yes, sir. It has never ended. It is one long, continuous war. And I didn't mention World War I and World War II. And like you said before, the Opium Wars, which we fought again, that we know today as the Gulf War, that we ended up again in Afghanistan. What was the real reason why troops are in Afghanistan? Opium. We're
Opium.
fighting the same battles over and over and over and over. I yield the mic. I apologize. I'm on my soapbox today, man. Y'all got me heated. I yield the mic.
No. Let's get it.
All I got to say about that is, wow. And I don't know for a fact, but James, you could probably help me with this. I would dare say that the split with the Catawbas, where because some Catawbas stayed south, and then another group of Catawbas went north after the war with the Tuscaroras. Did that happen around the same time as all this was going on?
Yes, sir. And those are your known as your Catawba up north. Oh man, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it on the air. I'm gonna be quiet. But that was part of that division that decided, hey, we're gonna be part of the Iroquois nation. And that's why you see those that are part of the Northern Gate, they speak a different language, have a different culture than the Catawba Supponi to the south. But they're all supposed to be a part of one tribe, one people. But why are those at the Northern Gate dealing with the Iroquois Confederacy and those that stayed in the Carolinas, Virginia area and in the Georgia, you have different cultures and different customs and you did different things. Something to think about. I yield the mic.
So again, it was a matter of picking sides based off of who you deem was going to be more beneficial. Nobody's innocent in all this. We are all guilty. That's the main point.
And the same thing happened among the Yamasee, because you have Yamasee and then you have Creek. Guess what? Y'all the same people. It's just the Creek decided to go to pick one side, and the Yamasee picked the other side. You're all the same people. I said, like Billy D. Williams used to say back in the 70s, don't let the smooth taste fool you. You're all the same people. Some people just decide to go with this European group or that European group that you all had discussed a few weeks ago. I hope everyone is following the history trail here and see how it all ties in and how it all makes sense. And it comes back to all these 501Cs that you see along here. All they were doing was taking our culture, our custom, our ways, and they were documenting it and putting it down, and then they tweak it and they keep tweaking it and they keep tweaking it. Because we just wasn't a group of people that just loosely got together and did things. Because how are you going to do that amongst tribes, amongst nations, and then do it internationally? Again, I go back to study the golden and bronze age, when you have the Issa that were traveling, taking copper all up into the Netherlands, where the Vikings are, which is why you hear about all of their different Norse gods, and to the Greeks, and then you hear about the Greek gods and how they relate to the Norse gods, and then you start to find out what was going on over here in the Americas. Then you go back to Turkey, that we call Turkey, and the reason why the nation is called Turkey is because the Issa were taking Turkey and Turkish wheat, aka maize, into the land known as Turkey today. I yield this cotton picking mic.
Even in 2019, you pick a job based on how much somebody gonna pay you. That's how good they got it embedded in you.
Facts, unfortunately, facts.
I'm sorry, I'm back again.
Now go ahead.
When I was a kid, back before it was WWE, it was WWF, and there was a man on there by the name of Ted DiBiase, I believe, and he was called the $1 Million Man. And
Yep.
he would say, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man. And remember all the wrestlers that we thought were good, all of a sudden they come out with him, they turn on their own team, making all that stuff, doing the tag team matches.
Mm-hmm.
This is what was going on here in the Americas. Everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
But that programming, James, if you don't mind me asking, that was we were the main watchers and supporters of that back at the WWF areas, especially on our television sets. Think about it.
Yes, sir. And we packed the arenas. Hulk Hogan, uh, what's his name? He used to wear the kilt. All the rest of them, and then the Slim Jim guy.
You talking about
All the
Roddy
rest of them.
Piper?
Yeah, Roddy Piper. You had what's his name? Oh man, I can't remember names now. But he always wore the sunshades. He'd be like, "Oh yeah." He used to have the Slim Jim.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
There you go, Macho Man. All the rest. So I guess I'm telling my age now, but you see all of that fascination and what we were caught up in with the $1 Million Man. What was your price? What was your bargaining chip? What was it that took you over to whatever side? And we're still fighting amongst each other, and we have not figured it out. And they are sitting back watching us kill each other, and we call it today gang banging. This is your territory. This is my set. You set tripping. Don't you come wearing this color on my set. And we're still doing it today. We are still doing it to this very day. We are caught up and not realizing that it goes deeper than we think. And once we figure out that we are pawns in this game, and like I said, we go, like you said again, go back to being producers and not consumers, that's when we'll be back on top. I yield the mic.
Didn't know it's gonna be like this today, did y'all? Neither did I. Neither did I. So we've learned a lot today. We learned that the United States Armed Forces is a nonprofit. We learned that the Coast Guard was originally ISA or Catawba Sioux. They were basically the first water customs agents. And that hurts me to say that because that's my tribe.
Out.
So then it goes on to read that the United States Coast Guard traces its origins to the founder of the Revenue Cutter Service, and it basically breaks down the other military services as well. And then it has a command structure. It says commander of the U.S. Armed Forces established in the Constitution. The sole power of command is vested in the President by Article 2 as Commander-in-Chief. The Constitution presumes the existence of executive departments headed by principal officers whose appointment mechanism is provided for the Appointments Clause. This allowance in the Constitution formed the basis for creation of the Department of Defense in 1947 by National Security Act. The DoD is headed by the Secretary of Defense, who is a civilian and member of the Cabinet. Defense Secretary is second in the U.S. Armed Forces chain of command, with the exception of the Coast Guard, which is under the Secretary of Homeland Security, and is just below the President and serves as the principal assistant to the President in all defense-related matters. Stop. The Defense Secretary is second in the U.S. Armed Forces chain of command, with the exception of the Coast Guard, which is under the Secretary of Homeland Security, and is just below the President, and serves as the principal assistant to the President in all defense-related matters. Together, the President and the Secretary of Defense comprise the National Command Authority, which by law is the ultimate lawful source of military orders. Does anybody want to comment on what I just read?
Your Homeland Security. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And Tony Batiste says, I keep telling people the NFL just WWF. We still being played like kids. Exactly, Antonio. LJ Free says, wounds heal when exposed to light and air. Yeah, most definitely Free.
That Homeland Security talk, it kind of piqued my interest there because that leads you right back to the BIE.
It sure does. And BIE are targeting. This is my narrative. So I'll let you know this straightforward. This is my narrative. The BIE are targeting Indians that don't know that they're Indians. And they're going to continue to target them until they find out who they are.
Yahtzee. Because you mentioned the Homeland Security and Coast Guard is just below who?
The President of the United States.
And the Homeland Security and the Coast Guard don't need authorization from the president to do what they do.
Nope.
If you ever seen them operate off the Florida Keys, they don't have to, they don't wait for an order from the president to surround your boat and tell you to dock it. And we gonna just jump on your ship and we're gonna ransack it. And then we're gonna say, oh, we didn't find anything. And then they get back in their little boats and you still stuck out to sea. With all your stuff thrown overboard.
Well, isn't that because they're in control of the waterways, which actually the President of the United States has no control of? Because now
you sank my battleship.
Because now you talk about maritime law.
Yeah, because the president is executive branch, and you got to remember, trade that would be on the legislative branch, laws, commerce.
They took what they learned from the Catawba Saponi and used that to control the waterways. Your Pirates of the Caribbean. Don't let them fool you with Blackbeard and Jack Sparrow. Know who you are.
So let's do a little bit more reading before we close it out, because this is a lot. I'm not even halfway done. It says to coordinate military strategy with political affairs, the president has a National Security Council headed by the National Security Advisor. The collective body has only advisory power to the president, but several of the members who statutorily comprise the council, Secretary of State, Secretary of Energy, and Secretary of Defense, possess executive authority over their own departments. That's what James was just saying. Just as the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of Homeland Security are in charge of the entire military establishment, maintaining civilian control of the military, so too are each of the Defense Department's constitutive military departments headed by civilians. The four DoD branches are organized in three departments, each with civilian heads. The Department of the Army is headed by the Secretary of the Army. The Department of the Navy is headed by the Secretary of the Navy. And the Department of the Air Force is headed by the Secretary of the Air Force. The Marine Corps is organized under the Department of the Navy. However, it is still considered a separate and equal service. The Coast Guard is under the Department of Homeland Security and receives its operational orders from the Secretary of Homeland Security, not the President. I put that part in there. However, the Coast Guard may be transformed to the Department of Navy by the President or Congress during time of war, thereby placing it with the Department of Defense. Sounds like a Confederation move to me. The President, Secretary of Defense, and other senior executive officials are advised by a 7-member Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is headed by the Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, the highest ranking officer of the United States military, the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The rest of the body is composed of the heads of each DoD service branch: Chief of Staff of the Army, Chief of the Naval Operations, Commandant of the Marine Corps, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, as well as the Chief of the National Guard Bureau. Although commanding one of the 5 military branches, the Commandant of the Coast Guard is not a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, despite being composed of the highest ranking officers in each of the representative branch. The Joint Chiefs of Staff does not possess operational command authority. Rather, the Goldwater-Nichols Act charges them only with advisory power. So they only have the ability to advise. So this gets really, really deep. David Carey says, boy, I couldn't get off that call fast enough. So David Corey, what you probably missed is that let me go back and read it again. The individuals in charge of the Homeland Security, they control the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard receives their instructions from the Secretary of Homeland Security. And now it makes sense why they call it Homeland Security, because you look at it from a perspective of viewing it from the water. Because the Navy deals with covering not just the continents abroad, but the Coast Guard deals with the United States coastal waters, and the Navy deals with all the other continents. Because remember, there are 800 military bases outside the United States. So the Navy has a lot of territory to cover. So the Secretary of Homeland Security is second in command under the president, and does not need to get advice from the president or the Joint Chief of Staff to make a move. The only time they join up under the Department of Defense is during the time of war. Now would be a situation where you're talking about a world war. So that's basically what we was talking about. So is there anything anybody would like to add before we close out today? Because this has been exciting, eye opening, disappointing, you know. But I'm glad we did this. Anybody got anything?
Yay.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Bones.
No, I just say yay.
Great show, fellas.
LJ Free says we've got to make sure the ones after us will never have to make that STMMT. Got to rip off the scab now so the wounds heals correctly. Well, that's true. Exactly. David Core says, how can I work with you guys to get wiser? Well, we put all the links and everything that we do. So you got to realize this, David. We're learning this as we're presenting it to you. So we're growing wiser together. So as you continue to come on the show and support and provide insight and information, we're learning together. So I don't know any other thing to tell you. LG says, sounds like the military operates like franchise operation. Commerce, commerce, commerce. That's true. So does anybody have anything that they wanna share or add before we move on for the day? Because I know we got a lot of stuff to do.
I just want to say I appreciate you all once again, those on the panel, those on the chat, and may want to go back because I know I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna listen to it at least for the next 2 to 3 days and let it marinate. But I wanted to end on this note. Remember that corporations are persons by law. 501Cs, they're named persons for a reason. I'm off the mic.
Well, what it boils down to is, again, we appreciate everybody being on the show and watching. Um, we drop the information so you could digest it, investigate it, research it, confirm, debunk, or what have you. Um, don't take our word for it. Don't take what we say as law. Question everything that we bring to you. And, our goal is to help those individuals that want to find their tribe, tie into their tribe, so they can help their tribe. We're not here to tell you who to hang with, who not to hang with, who to be, what to be, how to classify yourself. What we do is we just expose you to information and ask the questions. And I will end it with this. If the original HUD codes, which we know are not actually codes, if the original HUD codes were PIH codes, which stands for Public Indian Housing, and all the Native Americans are already on their reservations and they have houses, who are these codes for? With that, I yield the mic. Bones, and no sellout. Take it away, please.
All right. Anything to say no sellout? No, I forgot he had to step away for a moment. I guess on that note, nothing else I can add to it or say. It's always fun with the relatives. And until the next Rising show, peace.